Rose Loveall was raised in Vacaville, California. She attended UC Berkeley, graduating with a BS in forestry in 1985. After working for the California Department of Forestry in Fort Bragg, California for 2 years, she returned to UC Davis, graduating with a Master's in Science in Environmental Horticulture in 1990. She managed research greenhouses for the U.S. Forest Service in Chico and Placerville, California for 4 years. She then opened her own herb nursery, Morning Sun Herb Farm, in 1995 in Vacaville, where she propagates more than 700 different kinds of herbs, vegetables, and unusual drought-tolerant perennials. Lavenders and salvia are both specialties, with more than 40 types of lavender and 60 types of salvia in production. Wow. Rose is a much sought-after garden speaker, giving presentations and classes to many garden clubs and community colleges around the Bay Area and Sacramento Valley, as well as teaching classes about herb growing at her nursery. Welcome, Rose, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. You'll have to excuse my voice a little bit. I'm right at the end of my husband's cold. So this is his cold we're all listening to tonight. My name is Rose. I have owned Morning Sun Farm for 25 years now. We're doing our 25-year annual celebration this year. I can't believe we've been here 25 years. And I still make so many mistakes. How does that possible? You guys have worn me out already because just looking at your list of what you're doing for the next month, this is a lot of work. Your club is amazing. Not all clubs have this much activities for all their gardening stuff. So I want to talk a little bit first before we get started just about Morning Sun and what its purpose is on this planet. For me, it seems like it's to work 7 days a week and to keep my dogs and cats and donkeys and goats and chickens close by. We grow what we sell at Morning Sun. So the plants you see up here, the plants you'd see when you come out to the nursery, are all grown right there on site in Vacaville. So a little bit different than when you go to most retail nurseries where you buy everything in, and so a lot of things come out of a greenhouse where they've been loved and fluffed up with lots of fertilizer. We don't love and fluff. Everything gets really, thrown out there, and it has to be tough and hardy. So with not a lot of fertilizer, we tend to use just organic techniques and organic fertilizers. We do a lot of oddball things in really small numbers. So sometimes when you come out, you'll find things not on our website that we only have like 3 of that happen to take, and so we do a lot of odd specialty things. So today, I have a handout, and some of you picked it up, and I guess what I can do is I can start around anyone that didn't pick it up. I'll do like half and half. So the talk today, this is kind of our basic herb talk, but with a little bit of a twist. So this is going to be the Herbal All-Stars. These are herbs that for your garden this year, there's some that you must have them, some that you should have, and there's some that if you want to show off your gardening friends, you need to have them in your garden to show off. So a little bit of the 3. And so we'll include some gardening tips and talking a little bit about planting from seed. I know you're talking about, can you still plant things from seed for your own garden club sales, and it is possible to do a lot of planting. So just real quick, what's an herb? If we go by a strict dictionary definition, it's going to be seed-producing annual, or an herbaceous plant that dies all the way back to the ground. Of course, the problem is bay trees and lavender and rosemary and oregano, and so many of the herbs are actually evergreen perennials, and so they don't die all the way back. And so a more common herbal definition is any plant with culinary, medicinal, or aromatic uses to man, and I always like to add women, currently or in a historical context, because so oftentimes plants, herbs got moved throughout the world by women for dyeing, for medicinal use, for fragrance, for culinary, for folklore, for all kinds of things. So they tended to move around the world because women made them move because we needed them in our everyday life. So really quick, what do we think of when we think of herbs? We think of basil. We always think of basil. But there's a lot of other odd herbs that we don't think about so much, like calendula, little pot marigold, which is just a little flower that springs up in your garden everywhere and ends up being a really important anti-inflammatory. We use it internally and externally for both skin and digestion. Stinging nettles, everybody loves stinging nettles, right? I sell more stinging nettles than you can possibly imagine. It's high in calcium. They're used, stinging nettles is used a lot in the springtime as allergy relief. For colds, it's used. It's used as a tea plant, so you actually dry the leaves and then it loses the sting and you can use it in tea making. You steam it and you can use it as a spinach substitute. It's super high in usable calcium and magnesium. So for women, this should be an everyday herb. And for men too. And for almost all of us, we can use this herb every day. It's one we avoid like the plague, right? Whoever goes out to stinging nettles. Really important in the herb world. We use lots of different herbs for natural dyes. And some of our most expensive and sought after rugs in the world are made from fabrics using natural dyes. We have a lot of things that we don't even think about as being an herb, but patchouli is a really important herb from the Indian subcontinent. We grow it here mostly as an annual plant. It does smell like patchouli, and you can distill it and get oil out of it. People think about it only for one use, but in the perfume industry, it's actually widely used because it's a base note for holding down all the floral fragrances. So you'll have it in your very expensive perfumes also. We put herbs in little kitchen gardens. We chop things nice and round and tidy. We stick raised beds of herbs in crazy places. Lawns. Sometimes we don't have any lawn or space or anything, so we're up in the air. We push the cattle out and we use the old cow trot. I always am looking for another use for, how many pallets can you have hanging around? So lots of different uses, and herbs work in so many different ways in our gardens and our spaces. So this is starting with the list. So what are those herbs that are must-have? What does every garden need? A little too early yet, so I certainly didn't bring this with me tonight, but every garden needs a supply of several kinds of basil. Genovese, you must have Genovese basil. Lemon, okay, I'm just going to say you must have it. This is one of those basils that you start using and you fall madly in love with. And Thai basil. So if you were still going to be sticking some seeds out in the garden to have some to sell for your April sales, it's not too late. You want to get these started right away. There's a little bit of a trick to growing basil. How many of you grow basil and it goes to seed? It goes to flower, just wants to go to flower all the time. So you know those cute little kitchen gardens or gardens you see in a container that's got a basil and a rosemary and a lavender and a chive, and those are wrong. I do them too. I put them together and I sell them to you and I go, isn't this cute? But basil, an annual herb, likes lots of water and lots of nitrogen. So most of the things we're going to talk about today are totally the opposite of that. So your basil and your parsley and your dill and your cilantro, all those fluffy annual herbs, you are going to give them lots of water in the garden 2 or 3 times a week. And we fertilize pots of basil every week. And in the ground every 3 weeks at least. So, rosemary, you're lucky if you fertilize it once every decade. Very different. When the plants don't have enough fertilizer or water, they go, uh-oh, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have babies right now. So they put out flowers and seed. That is their whole goal on this planet. And your goal is pesto. What's wrong with the basil plants? They don't know that. So you want to keep it in vegetative mode, so more nitrogen. So you're giving it, if you're doing an organic fertilizing practice, you're doing something like fish emulsion every 3 weeks with a little sea kelp. If you're using an inorganic, you want to split it a little bit so it's not quite so heavy. So you're doing like a 16, 16, 16 every 3 weeks, have half the strength. So very different than most of our culinary herbs. And this will keep them in vegetative mode, right? You want fluffy plants all season long. The other thing is you're going to plant a basil at the end of March and the end of April and the end of May. Because those poor little annuals from March, they're just pooped by the time October rolls around. And you have grandiose plans of, pesto for everyone for Christmas gifts. They're done. But the ones you plant at the end of May, they're still going pretty strong, so long as you fertilize them. So really important to do your basils like this. Everyone knows the old song, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, Thyme, Scarborough Fair. Those are must-haves in the garden. And so you can always change it up a little bit. You don't have to do the everyday one. Our favorite sage to do is Beargarten sage. So this is Salvia officinalis, and all Salvia officinalis are culinary sages. Beargarten is nice because it doesn't bloom, so it doesn't put any energy into bloom, and it produces a giant leaf. So when you go to a restaurant and you have those flash-fried sage leaves on like a ravioli dish, with brown butter, that's the one you're getting. That's the one they love to use because it's a great big sage leaf that doesn't have any bitter flavor. So we love that one. There's lots of different rosemaries. This one here is called barbecue. It's a short, upright variety. It gets maybe 3 feet tall, easy to grow. Rosemary, we drive over it in the parking lot or maybe get coffee. It's nice though to have plants that are that easy. Thyme. This is English thyme. Thyme is probably the one herb that I grow that people tend to tell me, I grow thyme every year, and then I chop it back, and I rip it out, and I come and I get another one, and I don't know what to do with it. But I know I have to grow it every year. How many of you grow thyme in your garden? How many of you use the thyme in your garden? Oh, pretty good. Okay, good. So thyme, the number one thing I love about thyme is it is a salt substitute. And I didn't know how important that was until my mother could not eat salt anymore, and I was cooking all her food for her, and she was not happy. She wanted salt, and we had to do something, so we kept adding different herbs, and all the different lovely, different kinds of thyme make a wonderful salt substitute. English thyme is kind of your classic thyme. And then parsley, we don't think about it, but it's really important to have in the garden. If not for you, for all of the pollinators. Okay, so it's not just you that is eating it, it's all of those wonderful caterpillars that are going to grow up and be butterflies someday. So the trick for these two, sage and rosemary, is lots of compost or even gravel added to your area, especially if you've got a clay soil, and then you plant it up on a little bit of a mound so that the water in the wintertime has to drain away from the main stem, and then you try to keep those as dry as possible. Sage is our bellwether for overwatering because the sage will stick around and it'll look okay, and then it'll grow a little bit, and if we overwater it, it's not long before a branch dies, and then it starts to turn yellow, and then it looks like it's actually thirsty, so you go out and give it some water. But really, you've just rotted the roots out, so yes, it's not taking any water up, and it doesn't have the ability to. Sage likes to be dry, especially, I'm talking about our culinary sage, any of the Salvia officinalis. You're going to keep it dry, you're going to water it deeply and infrequently, and you're going to add a lot of amendment to the soil. If it's in a pot, you're going to put it in a soil mix that's well drained, nothing underneath the pot, so no saucer to hold extra water. Really important. Rosemary is quite a bit easier, but the same types of things are for rosemary also. So you want it dry, water infrequently. Time is short-lived. Isn't that a great little saying? Time is short-lived. Enjoy life. Time is a short-lived perennial. Rosemary, 50 years. Sage, if it's in the right spot, 10 or 12 years. Thyme, maybe 2 years for most of our culinary times. That's a normal thing. So if your thyme just after 2 years is not vigorous and it's only got 3 little stems left, don't try to baby it. Give it a nice funeral and come and get another one. And parsley, of course, is really high in calcium and vitamin C. It's good for us to add to our salads. It's a great herb to use all the time. It's going to fall into that same mode as basil. So lots of water, lots of fertilizer. And let the pollinators have some of it. So many years ago, I had a woman who bought a little pot of parsley and she took it to her car. She came back and she was so mad. She said, "There's a worm on my parsley." And one of my employees looked at it and she goes, "Oh, that's not a worm. That's the caterpillar for the swallowtail butterfly." And the woman grabs the pot back and she goes, "That's my caterpillar." Worm just a tenth of a second earlier, but now it's a caterpillar. So remember your pollinators. They eat a lot of the herbs, both in caterpillar form, and the adults are going to eat a lot of the nectar and pollen of those flowers. So let your herbs bloom also. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. Lavender is a must-have, and there are 28 different species, and there are over 2,000 varieties of lavender. So lavender is a big deal for us at our nursery. We have a small lavender field. We have about 600 lavender plants in our little lavender field. Down the road, we have a couple thousand, and we're part of the Yolo Solano Lavender Trail, which has 8 different farms on it, and I'll post the website at the end. And we actually, during May and June, we're having our 2nd annual lavender festival. So you can go to different farms and you can see 5 or 6 acres of lavender blooming. So the lavenders I have here, I didn't bring all of these. I brought this guy. I didn't bring this one here, Hidcote Blue. Hidcote Blue is an English lavender. And this one here is called Blue Spear, and that's also an English lavender. So English lavender is Levangula angustifolia. Every garden should have an English lavender. English lavenders are shorter. They bloom early. They usually bloom twice if you prune them back hard. And they're very sweet flavored. So for making ice cream and tea and cookies and ice cream and candy and ice cream. Ice cream. This is the one you want to use. One of these angustifolias. And everyone has a little bit different flavor. So this year at the Lavender Festival, we're doing our weekend on June 6th and 7th. We'll actually have set out so people can taste different kinds of lavender because each lavender has a different flavor. So these we use to make these terrific lavender jellies and jams. So once we've used it, this one here, this is Levangula aurelii. We use this one to make lavender jelly. We teach a class called the Day of Lavender. It's like a full day to just learn all about lavender and make things out of lavender. And we just grabbed this lavender instead, and we made jelly out of it. And at the end of the process, what we ended up with was the most interesting gray jelly that had a distinctive, delicious soap flavor. Nobody wanted to take it home. I just didn't get it. And we had told them, oh, it's a beautiful pink color, because we'd always used English lavender. So the flavor of lavender really does depend on the species and variety. I would use these for sweet foods, angustifolia, and this one here, this Loveall X intermedia, I would use for savory foods. So if you've ever used that bland herbes de Provence blend, that has the savory types of lavender. I would not make ice cream or jelly out of this one. When you go to the farmer's market and you buy these beautiful long stems of lavender, you're usually getting what's called a lavender. This is Loveall X intermedia of Brawlei. You're getting one of those. These are sterile, so these never produce seed. These can produce seed, but remember, you get lots of genetic variability with your seed. So if you're looking for a hedge that's exactly the same, you'll want to produce it from clones, not from seed. They grow in sun, and just like the sage, you're going to grow them the same way. You're going to add lots of compost or even gravel to your soil, and then you're going to build up a mound, and you're going to plant them on a mound. They are really good companion plants for roses, which people go, but roses get a lot more water than your lavender. So that's when you put your lavender up on mounds, and you've amended the soil there for the lavender, so that even if you're watering 2 or 3 times a week, you don't overwater your lavender. In our field, this field here, we only water once every 7 to 10 days. And we water deeply. We water so that every plant gets at least a gallon of water. So if we have our little emitters and they've got a quarter gallon, we water for 4 hours. So a lot of people go, I water 10 minutes, twice a day, every day. No herb loves that, except for maybe basil. Basil wouldn't mind that, but most of your herbs want deep and frequent water. Chives and garlic chives. These are the things you grow. You get your grandkids some seed, and this is what you start with. Chives and garlic chives. They're easy, they're fun. Both of them have flavors that you use a lot in your cooking, right? You use the onion flavor or the garlic flavor, very common. So whenever people go, what do I use it for? The same way you use onion and garlic, it's going to give you that kind of flavor. And the fun thing about these for kids is that they're really nice edible flowers. So they have an onion and garlic flavor, but it's sweet. And that's the thing about herbal flowers, is they tend to be sweet and kind of well-rounded. They're not as heavy as the leaf. The other thing about chives and garlic chives is it goes sun or shade, hot or cool, indoors, outdoors, wet or dry. They're very adaptable to whatever climate you're putting them in. They work great in a container. They work great in a bed. They're easy to grow. So these are both must-haves. Lemon verbena. Is there anyone in here who has never smelled lemon verbena? Lemon verbena? This is, when people go, what's the one herb you'd have on the desert island? This is it. I can't live without lemon verbena. Lemon verbena ice cream. Let's just start where I love it most. Lemon verbena ice cream is fabulous. Lemon verbena sorbet is delicious. Lemon verbena in a vodka martini is awesome. But also lemon verbena iced tea. Lemon verbena is a nervine, so it's really calming to the central nervous system. It doesn't make you sleep. It's not a sleep aid. It's one of those things that grounds us. So if you're anxious, if you're nervous, it's one of those things you would add to your tea to just kind of calm you down a little bit. It's also got a great flavor. People will use it in herbal steams and herbal baths. They'll put it under they'll stuff it into chickens. There's tons tons of different recipes for lemon verbena. It's big. This pot is way too small for this lemon verbena. It's about 6 feet big there, and it can get 6 to 8 feet big. And you cut it back in the winter just like a rose. So this is the time of year you take your giant, ugly lemon verbena and you prune it back like a rose bush so that you bring it back from its big old straggly form back to a nice compact form with plenty of fresh leaves. Lots of people, they grow it out and then they dig it up and they go, it died. I go, it was sleeping. Okay, we've had our same stock plant for 25 years. So again, it can go super hot. It can go fairly dry once it's established. It can go into part shade and do quite well. It lives in a container. It's an easy one to grow. It does have a little white flower, which we tend to overlook. But it's a great pollinator plant as well, so it's a good one to grow out and just let it pollinate. Easy to grow, definitely a must-have. And finally, you have to have some bugs in your garden. And we can't live without our oreganos. And I'll show you oreganos in a few different forms. These are our two culinary oreganos, Italian and Greek. They look really similar. The flavor is totally different. Italian oregano is very sweet and mild, has this pretty little white flower. And Greek oregano, this mountain Greek oregano, has a much hotter, spicier flavor with a little pink flower. So very, very different as far as flavor and how you would use them. And it's one of those pass-along plants. So people have a memory of how their parents cooked with it or their grandparents cooked with it. So they either remember it as, sweet, like the Italian, or kind of hot and spicy, like the Greek. Easy to grow. It can be a thug. So if you put it in your fluffy raised bed, 1 4-inch pot will get to be 6 feet wide and really big. So put it somewhere where the soil is not very good and let it have that space. Again, flowers. We love to cook with the flowers. And when people come out for tours, they're always surprised when they put a flower from an oregano into their mouth and they go, oh, I can eat this, no problem. You'd never eat a leaf of an oregano. You wouldn't think about popping a whole leaf in, but the flowers are delicious. So let them bloom. With our perennials, unlike the basil plant, for example, that you're always cutting the flowers off of, unlike that, you're not going to really taste any difference with your perennials between when they're blooming and not blooming. So let them bloom because you'll enjoy them, and all of our pollinators will love them. And you have to have a scented geranium. One scented geranium, and if you're going to have just one, it would be Atara Rose, the classic scented geranium. Smells like roses, has a beautiful little flower, but it's not really grown for the flower, it's grown for the foliage. And you want to place it someplace where you're going to run into it. That's the nice thing about the herb garden. All of our other gardens, we walk around, we're like, oh, don't hurt anything. And herb gardens, you want to thrash your way through. You want to smash into them, you want to smell them. They're very tactile, they have great fragrance. Put that stinging nettle right in the middle where you're just going to run into it. So scented geraniums, easy to grow. They're mostly native to South Africa, so they can take our hot, dry climate, and they all work really well in containers. Very easy to grow and hardy in our climate, at least the Atara Rose is. And then a lot of people have asked me about this one, this Agastache Blue Boa. So Agastache funiculum is anise hyssop. And if you take any natural throat lozenges, for example, a lot of times you'll have anise hyssop because it has that licorice flavor to it. So it'll help keep your throat kind of slippery. Wonderful flavor. And the flowers are edible. And then they're also wonderful for honeybees especially. This one the honeybees love, butterflies will love it. You find it if you go to the Sunset Gardens over in Sonoma. There's a huge pollinator garden, and there's probably 50 of these out in the pollinator garden because they are long blooming. They're super good workhorses in the garden. So cooking, culinary, tea making, pollinator plants, easy to grow. All right, so some should-haves. 2 more basils that you should have. Does anyone grow either pesto perpetuo or wild magic? Yeah, a couple people, 1 or 2 people. Everybody should have both of these in your garden. So we grow them for the exact opposite reasons. Pesto perpetuo is a Genovese-style basil that does not bloom. It's variegated. It's a little more winter hardy, so go an extra 6 weeks in the garden. It's kind of columnar, so it works really well in a container. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit more snail resistant. And the flavor is that of Genovese basil. So if you just get sick and tired of trying to keep ahead of all those flowers, you can grow pesto perpetuo. It's also very beautiful with that red stem. And it's going to give you plenty of leaf material, and you don't have to worry so much about flowers. We grow this one here, Wild Magic, for the exact opposite reason. This one, you want to let flower. It's a sterile hybrid that gets about 18 inches tall, has that incredible, beautiful purple leaf to it. Lovely flavor, even when it's blooming. And if you like honeybees, you want to have this plant around. If you have trouble getting some of your veggies to pollinate, you want to stick a Wild Magic basil in your garden. It is beautiful and it blooms for about 10 months. So ours died in the garden on January 10th. Finally. And on colder winters, it usually dies about December 27th. So we have it much longer than any of your seed-grown basils. We grow both of these from cuttings only. Obviously, this one never produces seed, and neither does this one, even though it blooms. So these are 2 that you want to get out of your garden this spring. And they're showy. They're really striking plants. Some wonderful lemony herbs. Lemon herbs all by themselves are a whole subject. Lemongrass, everyone thinks it's so difficult to grow and so temperamental. It actually is very easy to grow, sun or part shade, fairly dry, or a little bit of moisture. If it stays above 25 degrees, it will be a perennial in your garden. And after a few years, you'll find yourself digging it up, dividing it, and passing it along to other garden members or your garden sale. Everybody loves it, as you can see. My dog Zena is enjoying it. It's another nervine, so it's relaxing to the central nervous system, and it's also a digestive. So lemongrass tea, and you eat or use the top parts, maybe not that piece because she's already drilled on it, but other parts of that will be used for tea making. And then it's the bottom portion, the fleshy part, that you dig out and use for Asian cuisine. Okay, so it's a long-lived, easy-to-grow perennial. Right now, it doesn't look really good, so we've got to cut back up here. It's kind of in its winter mode. We have a new thyme called Lemonade Cascada. It's a ground-covered, lemon-flavored thyme that you can grow and let it cascade out of pots and containers and all over the ground. Ground-covered thymes don't live as long as people would like them to. So 3 to 4 years, generally, and you have to replace them. But the flavor on this one is dynamite. So this is one of those new herbs out there that is really worth having in the garden. Lots of different salvias. There's 750 species. For eating, we love this one. Of course, we have our traditional culinary, but this one is a dwarf pineapple sage. So the pineapple sage, the regular pineapple sage, you know, gets 5 feet tall and about 27 feet wide. Takes over your garden, and it doesn't start blooming until August. So you're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. This one only gets 16 inches to 18 inches tall, this little dwarf pineapple sage, and it starts blooming in April. So suddenly you have this wonderful flavor of pineapple and the fragrance of pineapple without all of that long 6-month wait and a giant plant. Works terrific in a container, and it can take a lot more shade than the regular pineapple sage. And likewise, if you like salvia, what's the big one? Hot lips, thank you. Salvia hot lips. Little Kiss is just like hot lips, but it's only 18 inches tall. So you know hot lips can take over your life. And Little Kiss works great in a container at only 18 inches. Not edible for us, but of course the carpenter bees, the hummingbirds, they all love it. Some little, well not necessarily little, but those green plants in your garden, you know, that's a nice little herb, I wonder what it is, and then you continue on your way. Savory. This is lemon savory, which only gets about 6 or 7 inches in the garden. It tastes like lemon pepper. So people go, what do you use it for? And I go, anything that you put that lemon pepper seasoning on. Chicken and fish, green veggies, squash and zucchini and soups. It has a great flavor with, again, an edible white flower. Easy to grow, and people are always so surprised when they reach down and smell the leaves. They aren't expecting lemon pepper. This one here is called Lipia graveolens. This is Mexican oregano. If you're cooking Mexican food, this is the oregano you use. It will grow just like lemon verbena. It will get 6 feet tall. It'll put on this pretty little white flower. And when you go to taste the leaves, they are so hot and spicy, they will make your tongue numb. Very unusual, really fun ethnic herb to put in the garden, again, that brings in tons of pollinators. A nice perennial that dies back just like lemon verbena, so we treat it like lemon verbena in our garden. But people are always surprised. We're like, oh my gosh, Mexican oregano, how unusual. And then some fun plants that are either both edible and super fragrant. Again, we grow a lot of plants of this genus, the Agastache. This one's called Morello. I didn't bring this one with me tonight. It's still kind of dormant, but incredibly gaudy pink flowers that are edible with this kind of purpley foliage down below, a 2-foot perennial that's just gorgeous. Tea plant, edible flower, pollinators. Another English lavender. You notice that little dark purple bud? So those dark purple buds are going to be really good for cooking with. They're going to make your jelly turn nice purple. And then it has that bicolor pink leaf, or pink flower. So when it's in bloom, you have this beautiful 2-tone purple. And super sweet fragrance, about 18 inches. And this little pelargonium, scented geranium, this is a should have if you are thinking about mosquitoes. This one has a ton of citronella oil in it. It's about 3 feet tall, it's indestructible. And it has the undertone of rose. So when we go and we put it on our skin, in the evening we'll be working in the garden and we'll have to put it on our skin. Instead of stinking like citronella, you have a nice rose scent. So very nice. Then we have to finish with some show-offs. These are those plants in the garden you go, yeah, I grew up with this. This one, I know I already sold all that I have here tonight. This one is called Merlot Lavender. It's a variegated lavender with a purple flower. This is at the Sunset Garden over in Sonoma. There it's in full sun, and in Vacaville I actually put it in half-day shade, and it does really well. A very strong fragrance to the leaves. It gets a couple feet tall, very beautiful evergreen perennial. And capers. Does anyone here grow capers? Capers. I got my stock planted capers from a garden in Orinda, and a little old Sicilian man that had an entire hillside of capers, and that's where I got my first seeds from. So this is a caper plant. This is in a wall. And people go, what kind of soil do capers like? And I go, oh, you know, a wall. They don't like soil. So I have them in soil with lots of perlite when I have them to sell. But when you take them home, you literally put them in cactus mix. If you've ever been to like the Ruth Bancroft garden, that's the kind of soil that you want for capers. So here's the flower. Caper flowers are beautiful, very, very stunning, exotic looking. There is the caper that you're actually going to harvest. So the flower before it opens, that's the part you harvest of capers. So, but a lot of people, of course, want to let it bloom. And so then what you do is you can brine the caper berry. And if you've been to restaurants where you get the little cheese platter, and then there's the caper berry with a little stem attached to it, you let the flower bloom, and once the bloom closes, that little ovary part you actually pluck off, and you brine it. This is a caper plant that my friend Annie, who's right there, grabbed me by the waist so I could hang over the wall in Dubrovnik and take a picture. This is about 70 feet above the Adriatic Sea of a caper plant. So people go, how do I grow them? I'm like, I don't know, in a wall, I think. So in stone, in a rocky spot, and when people go, I have poor soil, I say not clay, rocks. Okay, so a rock garden is the perfect place for a caper with lots of sun and very little water. Some other show-offs. This is another oregano. This one's called Barberini, and these are the flowers. So Barberini is a ground cover that works great in a hanging basket, and the flowers turn that beautiful pink color. The longer they're in the sun, the pinker they get. And we'll let them get that pink, and then we cut them off and dry them and use them to make wreaths because they don't fall apart. So they'll stay like that for years and years and years. It's a beautiful ground cover. If you're going to grow one lemon-scented herb that's not lemon verbena, I would grow this scented geranium called Maple Gray. First of all, it has a beautiful leaf. It has kind of a maple-shaped leaf with a bigger flower. And it smells to me almost like lemon pledge. I mean, it's just super strong. And you can't cook with scented geranium. So if you go online and look up recipes, there's lots of really great recipes. This little guy here is another one of those Augustachys. This is our show-off. It has a really fine leaf that's a kind of a grayish blue. And then above it sits this haze of kind of soft coral and pink. And when you walk up to it and smell it, it smells like root beer. So hence the name root beer hyssop. So we use this one again for a tea, and the flowers are great to throw in a fruit salad or to put in a nice adult beverage. They work really well. And of course the hummingbirds love it. It's another full sun herb that is just loves lots and lots of sun. Bee balms. How many of you grow Monarda? Monarda? See, again, not many people. Bee balm. So this is one of our bee balms, or Monardas. And the most common one we have is called bergamot, which a lot of times we use for tea. This one is called bebop, and it has this purple bract, and then the actual flower is yellow with red polka dots. And bees love this plant. So we have this in our garden. It only gets about 18 inches tall and a few feet wide, and it's always just covered with honeybees. And if you're looking for cut flowers, it's really spectacular. Lots of echinaceas, and Echinacea purpurea is our classic medicinal herb. This one we love is powwow wildberry because that's about a 4-inch flower with a giant cone. So pollinators, of course, are super attracted to it, and it's a beautiful cut flower. And yarrows, or the achilleas. We have lots of yarrows. They all lay down like lazy. They're just lazy. So they bloom and they flop over and they look kind of ugly and not very tidy in the garden. This one called pomegranate has a really strong stem, grows about 18 inches tall, and it stands up straight, and it blooms for about 10 months. So it starts this pomegranate red, and as it dries out, it dries down to a light pink. So really stunning in the garden. Hibiscus. Jamaica. Have you ever had Jamaica? Jamaica? Jamaica is also called Roselle. If you've had food in Jamaica, if you've had food in Mexican restaurants, Jamaica is that kind of citrusy, lemony, tart flavored drink. And it is grown from a hibiscus from the waxy outside sepals. So not from the flowers, which by themselves are very pretty, but you let the flowers finish, and then you harvest this part. So there's the little dried flower part, and that's the sepals left that are very waxy. You dry them, and then you use those for tea making. Or I added it to some vodka, and it was really delicious. These make great Christmas presents. I was trying to think of a few extra Christmas presents, and Jamaica vodka is delicious. Easy to grow. This one is an annual. So this one, you will start and finish in 1 year. It won't look like anything but a green bush, and all of a sudden in August, it comes into full bloom and blooms for the next 3 months. So you can harvest it all during the fall and dry it for winter use. It's also very high in vitamin C. So we have donkeys. Everybody loves our donkeys. And the donkeys love lavender. They'll eat the whole field if they get the chance. We're still on our winter hours for just a few more, another week or so. And then starting February 25th, we start back to our regular summer hours, Tuesday through Sunday. Our biggest event of the year is actually our big open house, which is Saturday, May 2nd. We do all kinds of great demos that day, lots of free talks, a big food tasting, extra vendors, a lot of different herbal products going on. And then our Lavender Festival weekend is Saturday and Sunday, June 6th to 7th. If you go to our website, there's more information and it'll lead you over to all the other different farms. But otherwise, if you go to the Solano Yolo LavenderTrail.com, all the farms are listed that are in Yolo and Solano County. And I hope you come out to see us. I brought just a little selection of plants today, and as spring goes on, which is going to happen really fast, I think, we're going to have a big, fluffy spring, I hope. All right, thank you. Questions? Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Ladies, gentlemen, questions? Anyone? Everyone's all ready to get herbs, I hope.
You mentioned that, I think, I remember when you said that you did the eggs and nitrogen, I think the basic, but do you use coffee grounds?
So the question is, would you use coffee grounds for your extra nitrogen? I don't think it's fast enough. I don't think coffee grounds are going to give you enough nitrogen fast enough because it's an annual, it's really, you can use it for around all your